Well, I want to welcome everybody today. This is January 13th, 2022, and we're excited because we have this series of My First Year where we have ambassadors share their first year in Relive, and we get to glean golden nuggets from that. And we have people, this is so exciting. We have people from all these different lines that have come together, and thanks to Zoom, we all are getting closer and closer to each other. If everybody can mute, that would be great. And so, you're coming from your busy day, you may be in the middle of three things. Just let's everybody take a deep breath and just breathe in how good this moment is that we can be together and that we are loved and we are grounded and that we have this time to get to relax and be united and set our intentions for the highest good of this next hour with Betty and what might be shared with us through this for the good of each other and ourselves and all the people that are yet to hear about Relive. So I know Betty because she told Susan, who told friends, who told me. So she's in my line of mentorship and I love her and we go way, 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 way back. And I just can't wait because she has so many different facets to her personality and what she gives us. But I'll tell you, Betty, when I first heard your story, I heard it as a beautiful story, but I was 31 and had no children. And then when I had teenagers getting ready for college and I heard your story, I had new ears to hear your story. So today, everybody comes with their own ears to hear what they're going to hear today. And we're all going to hear it our way. It's going to be a blessing to everybody and we can pass that on. And we're just excited. So thank you so much, Betty, for spending time with us today and sharing your first year in Relive and what goes from there.
Okay. Well, I know a lot of you have heard my story. So, one of the things that happened for us, friends introduced us to Relive from Chicago, and my husband had always been into nutrition. So he was excited about trying the product. And because of my friend's results, I wanted to get on it. I started through menopause and struggled and decided not to go on hormone replacement therapy. And really getting on the product helped me. Within the 3 months, my mood swings were evened out. I was sleeping better. So it was, we really believed in this product. But my husband saw the business the day he got on the product. And I just want all of you to know that I was kind of a negative person. I'm trying to think what word would I use, but anyway, I was pretty skeptical. And my husband at that time in his life, he was almost 60 years old and had been in upper management for a long time. And he and the company president were not seeing eye to eye, and we kind of knew who was going to win that argument. And sure enough, Phil did lose his job. And our kids were, Emily, I was thinking about your teenagers. Our kids were just entering high school at that time. That was back in 1994. And Phil could see this as a huge business. And I'm thinking, my gosh, Phil, people don't make money doing this. That's all I could think about. It's like, oh, I love the product, but I don't think you can make money doing this. Well, anyway, we were on it for about 6 months. And I have to share with you that if it weren't for Joe and Carol following up with us, that's the key to this business is follow-up. Because if they had not done that, we would not be where we are today. But he was very persistent in introducing us to people all across the country that had great results in the products as well as the business. And that gave us hope. I was still dragging my feet. It took a conference for me to really catch on to the possibility and the hope that the business offered to us. It really gave us hope. And so that weekend after the conference, we made a business decision that we were going to go home, we were going to build this business. And so we sat down with Joe and Carol and we were dead serious. I mean, Phil, we were living off our assets and we needed to earn an income. And we knew we found a good product. And with my husband's engineering background, I mean, he did all the research for the doctors that developed the products. He could tell you everything that's in the product. I have no idea what's in the product, but Phil did. And anyway, when I went to my friends, as soon as they started asking me about ingredients, I said, I have no idea, just take it. I said, this is what it's doing for you. I mean, that is the truth, you guys. So I'm going to share some funny stories because my story can bring tears and my story can bring a lot of laughter. But that's our story. And we worked really hard that first year. And I have to tell you that our first year in the business, I really got fired up at the conference. It's like there was a couple of 2 or 3 nuggets of gold that God used in my heart at that conference. And he changed my heart about the business while I was there. So he gave me this huge desire to go home and go to work with Phil. And so we did that. Now, that first year, I have to tell you, it wasn't easy. I was scared. I know that doesn't sound possible, but I was. I do talk to a lot of people. I don't have a problem with talking and sharing with people, but approaching my friends and to sell them something was really hard at first, even though I believed in the product. But what I did is I really learned by Joe and Carol's example, because when they called us and introduced us to people, that's what I learned to do. I learned at one point in our career, they used to call me the queen of 3 ways, because I learned that if my friends could hear some of these stories, they would get on the product. And that's exactly what happened. I would go to my friends and I would just say, listen, you got to hear what's happened to Susan. You got to hear what's happened to her on these products. And I just dial them up and I put the phone right up to their ear. In fact, Susan can tell you the story about her getting on the product that way. But, it's just because I felt like that was the proof in the pudding. It was the results people were getting on these products and the results people were getting on the business. Now, it was easy to approach people about the product that first year. It took me a while to introduce them to the business. And I think the reason why is because I wasn't really earning any money at that time. And I felt like, I had to be making some money to tell them that there's a business to it. But then I learned from my upline and I listened to their stories. We used to have a Thursday night story call. I don't know if Adrian Bell or Emily, if you were even in the business at that time, but every Thursday night, there was a call that the company actually hosted. This was before we had, conference calling and stuff, guys. So, and so anyway, but it was through those stories. We built the business on the stories. But as I began to earn some income, I felt a little bit more confident because I tended that first year to lead with a product more than I did with a business. But now I learned, I don't know how long it took me to learn it, but I learned how to do both at the same time. I figured if I could get it out right in the very beginning of the conversation, they're going to know that there is a business opportunity with this as well. You might approach friends that, maybe they're in such financial need that they need a business. And we've got stories in our company of distributors that have actually shared. I remember Joyce Holthouse used to say, if somebody would approach her with a product only, she wouldn't have been interested. But they had a huge need for income. So when I started sharing, I would just tell my friends, I just said, hey, listen, wait to hear about what's happening with people on these products. And I'll tell you what, these products are so good. It's a fantastic business opportunity along with it. And then I would tell my friends, I decided to market the product. And I would just set it up like that. Then, because they were all good friends. So I didn't really learn how to just set up an appointment, so to speak. Since our upline didn't go on appointments with me, they were in Chicago. We were in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so when I would get to their house, I would share my story. That's the first thing I did is share my story about what happened when we got started on these products. And then as I started earning the income, I'd tell them how much money we were earning, how much money I was able to earn as well. But while I was there on the appointment, I would always get a story on. Even after I started learning how to go through it, I didn't even, in my early days, we didn't even have a brochure. I mean, we didn't even use brochures. I didn't use a, printed out marketing plan or anything. In fact, half the time I didn't even show the marketing plan. I would just, if they were interested in the business, I'd just say, well, how much money do you want to make? You want to make 20% profit? You want to make 40% profit? Well, of course they want to make 40% profit. So they'd ask me what I did. So, well, I came in as a master affiliate, so they just did too. So that's how I did it, guys. I didn't show that marketing plan probably, probably over a year, because I didn't even know how to do the marketing plan. I just I would just ask them how much money they wanted to make. And that's really the truth. That's what I did with my friends. But I knew a lot of people in town. So, and I did get over, it took me a while, that first 6 months, I have to say, I would get really nervous when I started to call somebody. I'll never forget, in my office one day, there was a woman that came to mind. I really felt God put her in my mind. And I was supposed to call her. And I remember getting to that telephone. I remember it was like that telephone was like a hot potato. And all I could think about is, oh, I can't call her. Oh my gosh, what is she going to think of me? I mean, that's really the thoughts that would come in my mind. I called her. And lo and behold, you know what she was doing? She was sitting at her table, writing out a list to go to the health food store. So, and all I did was I said, Nancy, do you believe in nutrition? Do you take vitamins? She said, oh, yes. But she just started telling me she was just getting ready to go to shopping. And I said, well, listen, I've got a product that I think you might be interested in that I'm on. And I said, I'm going to have, and this was we were having a big weekend. Joe and Carol were coming over. We rented a hotel and we're going to have a Friday night meeting and a Saturday training. And so I said, you know, some folks from Chicago are coming in to introduce it to the area Friday night. Do you think you could come? And she was a speaker. She traveled all over the country speaking, and she was going to be up in Traverse City. She says, well, you know, I think I might be able to get back in time Friday night. And sure enough, kid, she showed up. And you know what? She came in as a master affiliate that night. Now, what if I hadn't called her? I was so prompted to call her, but I got really nervous because of who she is. And just think if I hadn't called her. So, you know, I think for new distributors that y'all just need to know that the longer you're involved and the more you do this, the easier it becomes. And I got everybody on with my upline. They would share their story. And then I learned how they shared their business story. They weaved their health story right into their business story. And I learned how to do that by listening to other people. And even the first 6 months or so when I wasn't sharing the business, I knew that when I got my friends on a follow-up call with my upline, that they would hear the business, even though I wasn't strong at sharing the business during that time. But I was confident that that business story would come out during that conversation. When I put people on the product, another thing that I did is I just set them up to win right in the very beginning. They would know what they could do in the business. They would hear a couple of stories. And then I would tell them that this month, I'm going to call you a lot to see how you're doing on these products. You're going to get a chance to hear some really great stories of people on these products. And that's how I would leave it. I never asked them if I could call them. I just told them I was going to call. Maybe you're going to get a few people that will say, well, you don't need to call. Oh, no, yeah, I do. Because I'll tell you what, my name comes on those cans. And I want to make sure you're going to get good results. And that's true, guys. You get one person at your church that has some negative reaction and you haven't done good follow-up. Trust me, that negative word will go out sooner or later. So you always want to make sure if you've got a customer and they're flip-flopping and they're not taking it properly and they're complaining, yada, whatever, you know, after 2 or 3 calls, they still are negative. You go over there and you give them their money back and pick up that product. And you do it nice. I mean, in a nice way, but I mean, because really you think about that, you get somebody on the product and they have some negative viewpoint or whatever, they could just kind of sour your market a little bit with other friends. So I'm really strong about that. They don't take it and they're wishy-washy. I just, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't the right time for you to get started on. Maybe let's try in a few months. I said, let me give your money back and we'll try again another time. And I just feel that that's very important to do. You know, my brother, I went to my brother and and he was kind of negative. And so, but every time I earned a trip, I made sure my mom told him. Anyway, he eventually came in the business because his wife got great results on the product. But anyway, I'm just trying to think of what else. So the first month, you know, I started making maybe $400 or $500 a month retailing. I can't say I was putting 8 hours a day in because I was really very active that first year with a lot of things that I was involved with at my church. So I was phasing out of some of those volunteer things that I was committed to. But every time there was some event in Chicago, they had a big meeting over there. I just pile a bunch of people in my car and I take them, whatever. And every time Joe and Carol went on a trip, they were going to do a meeting, maybe in the South or somewhere. I would make sure I get my map out to see if I knew anybody in that area and get them to that meeting. I knew the key to the business is getting my friends in front of these other people to hear their stories, their life-changing stories. And so I learned how to do that. I can't tell you that it was easy in the beginning, guys. When you're learning how to do a three-way call, it was awkward. I wasn't as strong as I am now, of course. I'm very bold and matter of fact, like, of course you want to get on. But in the beginning, it was, I was nervous. I can remember a few times even on some calls that I had Joe and Carol on or Joe on, and they were real strong early on, especially early in that first 6 months. I would get really kind of nervous that they talked about the business so much because I led with a product all the time. And so I would sit on the phone and listen to them share, and I'd start perspiring and praying that I still have friends. But anyway, but I did. So I'm just trying to think of other things that I just remember this. The follow-up is so key to your business, and learning how to set up these calls on three-way calls to get your friends on. There's a learning curve to that. I know Emily had to learn too. We all did. How to do that in a fun way. Let's see, Emily, what else can I? And so the first 6 months, and then actually the third month in our business, we were #1 in the nation, and we actually earned a cruise. Now, I have to tell you that when we got involved with Relove, I can remember saying things like, Phil, these meetings are going to be like rah rah, everybody's going to get rich quick. I said, I don't like those kind of meetings. And then when we earned that cruise, I thought, well, maybe it's not so bad to earn some of these trips. But what the cruise did for me, it really gave me hope. It was like, you know what? I think we can do this. I think we're going to be able to we might be able to replace Phil's income with this business. In 15 months' time, we became what they call at that time a presidential director, which meant our override check had reached over $8,000 in a calendar month. In fact, that month we earned $10,000 with our retail, our wholesale, and our override check. I actually took a picture of that check. And I have a story to go along with that check. I don't know if you want to hear it or not. Is anybody listening to me out there? I don't see anybody.
Yes, please tell the story about the override check.
Okay. Well, we had this big, my friend and I would have these, we hosted a luncheon at our church. And we would have a guest speaker come in. Well, we invited some new people. One woman was invited. She had been the CEO of Gantos, which is the high class in dress shop in Grand Rapids. And the Gantos brothers owned it, but it was going down the tubes. And so they hired this woman from Lord & Taylor. She'd been the president of Lord & Taylor in New York City. And they hired her to come in to get that company up and going. Well, she did not do a good job because it failed. Well, she's sitting in this big, beautiful house in East Grand Rapids with no job. Well, we invited her to our luncheon. It was a very important luncheon for her to be at, which was a blessing. Okay. But after the luncheon, I started thinking about, I went to the conference. Oh, I know what it was. No, they used to send out cassette tapes of people's stories. And Tommy Moody was on a story. And oh my gosh. So when he got in the business, he was the nephew of all these aunt and uncles, these big Irish Catholic family in Chicago, right? And so he'd go around to his aunt and uncle. I'm listening to this tape. I made an appointment with this woman to tell her about Relove. I mean, how gutsy is that? Here she is, this high class woman, right? I'm going to go tell her about Relove. I can't believe I did that. Well, anyway, so I'm driving over there and I have this cassette tape in my car. And Tommy's story, if you hear Marge or any of them talk about it, it's so funny. He'd go around his aunt and uncle and say, listen, I'm going to make a lot of money in this business. I'm going to be making $10,000 a month. And his aunt would get so embarrassed by him doing that, saying that to people. So I'm listening to this tape and he was going around telling everybody that. So I get in there and I had my appointment with this woman. She was just a lovely gal. We're sitting at her kitchen table. And she says, well, Betty, I'm really interested in getting on the prep, but I really don't think I'm interested in the business. Well, I stood up. I could still see her kitchen. Do you know how many years ago that was? I can still see her kitchen. I stood up in front of her. And as I'm getting ready, I said, well, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to be making $10,000 a month. And I walked out of there and I got my car. I said, I can't believe I said that to her. Then when I told all the distributors that I'd already sponsored, which were all my friends, in my kitchen, around my kitchen counter, I told them what I did and they all knew who she was. And I said, and you know what I told her? I told her I was going to be making $10,000 but you should have heard my friends. Oh, Betty, how could you do that? I said, I know, it was crazy. 1 year later, the same distributors around my kitchen counter, I got a check for $10,000 in 1 month. And Nancy said, Betty, do you remember when you said that? I totally forgotten. Can you believe that? Isn't that an amazing story? I have so many stories like this. But anyway, so we had, we just made sure we were having fun. People like to have fun. I was in South Florida talking to an old friend that used to be in Michigan, and I met her at one of these coffee shops where all the tables are almost right on top of each other. You know how you're in a coffee shop and they're real close, everybody can hear what you're saying. I was so excited to tell her about this business and this product, and I'm just going on and on and on. Do you know, a man 2 tables away from us got up, came over to my table. He had gold everywhere. All I can remember, he had a Ralph Lauren shirt on. I mean, he had money dripping all over him. He had gold chains. I mean, to see this guy. And he says, lady, what are you so excited about? And I told him, do you know what he did? He went to the back of the, he got his wife on the telephone, and I went back, shared my story, and got her on the product. Yeah. People don't realize how nice it is to be around people that are having a good time. And I have to say, I've got to tell another story because this just happened last week. When you hear this, I'm either laughing, guys, or crying because I miss Phil so much. Anyway, so in Relove, now you think about it, Phil and I were probably the oldest people in the whole company. I don't know.
We love you, Betty. We love you, and we miss Phil too.
Huh?
I said we love you and we miss Phil too.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was invited to this thing. It's called Prime Timers at this church. Okay, this is for people that are usually over a certain age. So I went to this meeting, and there were over 100 people there, and they had a 2-hour meeting. They do it once a month, and they have a guest speaker and some people that sing and this and that. And I walked into that group, and they're all old. I are one too. But it was kind of weird, I'm in real, there's so many mixed ages, you never really felt your age. Do you know what I mean? You don't realize that. And so that's another special thing about being in real. There's just all kinds of mixed ages, and doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, everybody's having such a good time working together. And yeah, it's been very special. So I don't know what else you want me to share. Emily, you guys, you want to hear a really hard story when they hung up on me?
Yes. We want to hear it all.
This is terrible story.
If you can laugh about it, we want to hear it.
Okay, so I have this friend that got in the business, and I just love her, but she was never really quite teachable. Okay. And you guys are going to learn that in your business, that some people just don't get it. Okay. Sometimes they're a little hard to teach. Well, she was not real teachable. So she's up in northern Michigan at her cousin's house, who was a physician, a doctor. And so I get on the phone. We're going to introduce her to my sponsor, which is Joe and Carol. Well, Joe is on the phone. So she gets her cousin on, who's a doctor. This is terrible. I'll never forget this. He gets on the phone, and Joe's pretty strong. And if he's going to do a 3-way, he's going to make sure that wife's on the phone too. And you know what, guys, this is a good lesson for you to learn, to have both. If they're married, to have both of them on the phone, because what happens is the wife gets all excited, and then she goes to tell the husband, and he throws cold water all over, or vice versa. Okay. That's what I did to Phil. So Joe says, well, we'd like to have your wife on the phone. So this guy, this is what he says, hey, Harriet. He says, somebody, let's see, what term did he use? Oh, there's some guy on the phone that wants to give us his spiel. Oh my gosh. Joe hung up. He hung the phone up. Joe did. And I'm hanging on there with my friend and her cousin. And I'm choking up. I'm going, oh my gosh. Joe was so put out that he didn't even say goodbye, talk to you later. He said, he might have said see ya and hung up, because that's how this man introduced Joe, as he's going to give him his spiel. Get on the phone and listen to this man's spiel, like some kind of a salesman kind of guy. You know what I mean? And we really did recover that customer for my friend. Her cousin never did come. But I mean, I would have a few of those kind of experiences once in a while. And but I just kept going. Anyway, so all right, we were in the business like that summer. Then come January, February, there was a big conference out in California. So Joe calls, he says, Betty, you gotta go to the conference out in California. I said, no, I'm not going to that conference. I said, it's too much money. I said, I've got kids. I said, I went to the conference in that summer. I don't need to go to another one. And then he says, this deep voice, leaders go to conferences. I said, they do. Philip walks into my office and says, Betty, you're going to go. I said, I am? Oh my gosh. All the way out in California, get on an airplane by myself to go to California. You're going to be kidding me. I'm not going to do that. And so I'm arguing with my sponsor. I'm arguing with Joe Felger. He said, well, who do you want to take? Well, I knew who I wanted to take. I said, but she works full time. She was top management with a company my husband was with. She was a master affiliate. She'd never been to a conference. She made good money. I mean, she was a human resource director of this company. And so he said, well, why don't you invite us? Well, why didn't you invite her? Well, let's get on the phone together. So, okay. See, this is how you use your sponsor. When it really gets tough, you kind of let them do it. That's what I did. I go, I'm not going to ask her. Joe Felger will. So we get on the phone. Joe tells her about the conference, and I'm sitting there praying, sweating, perspiring, praying. And so she didn't say yes or no or anything. We hang up. She calls me 10 minutes later and she says, are you going to that conference, Betty? I said, you bet I am. So she went to the conference. And you know what? That was the best thing in the world for her, because you know what happened? It turned her on to this Relive business. And I'll tell you what, in 3 months, she called me and she said, Betty, I'm going to quit this business, this company in 6 months. I'm going to do Relive full time. Next time I get a call, we're working together. I'm helping her get people on the product and everything. She's, Betty, I'm going to quit in 3 months. She quit in 2 weeks. After that, she came in full time. But that's what that conference did for her. And I was too scared to invite her. And Joe did it for me. So that's how we use each other. Your sponsors got a lot more confidence because they've been in the field a lot longer and they understand people. And yep. Well, that's my first year. I don't know what else. The second year we were making $20,000 a month and our income kept growing. I can remember 1 month our check hit $70,000 in 1 month. And my goal was to make enough money, to put the kids through college. And I never dreamed that it would grow that. I never really had that faith that it would grow that big. But I worked at it, guys. I worked every day. I was so worried. You get that check and it's all commission. You think, well, it might not be there next month, so I better keep working. So I just kept working. And God just really blessed our efforts. He brought wonderful people. When I think of the people that we've met that I never knew until I told them about Relive, that we've become very good friends. So it's been a real blessing in our life. Yeah. So Phil had the vision, and he always had the right answers. Bless his heart. He always knew it was good for us. Anyway, do you guys have any questions?
This
I
is,
don't know what else to tell you.
I have a question, Betty. Tell
Okay.
us what a day was like your first year, what a whole day of what you would do.
Well, the night before I made out my list, the night before I made out my to-do list. Now, when I got people on the product, now everything's on a computer, but I had a card file. Everybody I put on that product, their name, what their issues were. And I would use those cards to follow up. And I would start thinking immediately. That's why it's really important for you guys to get everybody's numbers on these distributors that have stories, because you share each other's stories, okay? So I always made a list of who I was going to call the next day. First of all, how many cold calls? Now, I had several lists. I had relatives, I had friends, school friends, church friends, and I would make that list, okay? And I was just, I took, like Joe says, Betty, take your 10 best friends, your 10 top people. Let's go to them first. So I did. So I just did everything he told me to do, even when it was hard. I did it anyway. So I had that, then I had my relatives. So I had these running lists all the time. And then I had to keep a record on my follow-up calls. And then I would make a note who they talked to. Gee, I got Susan on with Emily McMillan on this date, okay? And I would also, guys, when you meet people and you know what their background, maybe they're a realtor, maybe they're, maybe they have a cleaning business or whatever, you might know another distributor that was in the same kind of business, okay, that you could hook them up to hear their story. So I did that. So every day I started on the phone 9 o'clock every morning, and I would start doing all my follow-ups. Then I do my calls on who to introduce it to. And then I would, no matter where I went, guys, I had my business cards with me all the time. And I don't care if I was at the cleaners, at the grocery store, you name it. People would get my card and I would tell them about, this is what I'm looking. I'd go in a dress shop. There was one dress shop. I sponsored a little gal, cutest button. She was so good. She was a good salesperson. I mean, she brought me clothes. She was interactive, smiling, just really cute gal. And I told her, you know what? I'm looking for somebody just like you. I'm looking for people that enjoy people. And I can tell you really like people. I'd like to have a cup of coffee with you and show you a business that you might be interested in. And we met for coffee and she came into business. I can remember being in a meeting when we had our house down in Florida in Jupiter. I remember one gal that was a distributor was really shy. She was just very shy, lovely gal. On Saturday, we would go out shopping and we'd go to the makeup counters. We went to 5 makeup counters in one day. And I had a button on. I never wear buttons, but Phil had these buttons. Maybe we got it from this. I love soy or something like that. And I had a button on. This cosmetic gal says, well, I take soy. What is that? And then I started telling her about it. She got on the product. So you just don't know. Just you go with a purpose. Even if you're going to go to the cleaners, just make sure you're going to bump into somebody that needs to hear about Relive. Oh, you know what, Kim, you're really good at that. I watched you in action. You talk to everybody. You're so cute. So, and when I think of some of the people, like we were going to have a big meeting down in Atlanta, and Phil got on the phone because we knew a guy that used to work for Zonda, a publishing company that moved down there. He called him up and he said, told him what we were doing. We're going to be down there for a big meeting. And the guy wasn't interested. He said, but you know what? I've got a fellow in our Bible study that's really looking for something like this. And so Phil got on the phone and met him over the phone, told him our stories. He was going to meet us at the conference. Lo and behold, we're standing out. There was a lot of people there. We were standing off to one corner somewhere. And this guy walks right up to us. And he says, I'm looking for a couple named Phil and Betty Wolf. Do you know them? It was us. And it was Bob Edmonds. Do you know we didn't even know this guy. And he became a presidential director in our business. He opened up the whole European line for us. So you just keep asking. So a friend says, well, I'm not interested. Well, who do you know that is? Who do you know that needs to make some extra income? That's what I always did. I always did that. Who do you know? Who do you know? So put that on your list. Who do you know? If they say no to you, then you say, well, who do you know that suffers with migraines? Who do you know that has allergies? Who do you know in your family that could use these products? Yep, I did that a lot. Then usually the evenings were probably my best time to do my follow-up calls because people are working and I'd set it up. You got to set it up well with your customer. You let them know when I filled out my little card on them, I said, what's the best time to call you? Morning, noon, or in the evening? What's the best time for me to call? What time is the best time? 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock? And I put that down on my card. And then I would say to them in a nice way, I know you're really busy and I am too. I said, so I'll be sure to call you at 7. And so leave that time open. I let them know that, I'm serious about it. And that they will take it serious too. And then I would have a 3-way set up already. I would have called a couple of distributors. Hey, tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, can you be available for a 3-way? Yep, I can be available. And so I have to tell you, my evenings, that's when I learned about retail therapy. You know why? Because Phil would come into my office and he'd say, Betty, you need to get out of the house. Because I would be on the phone all evening, all day, in and out. So this is let me tell you what I did. I would go out shopping. That was my retail therapy. So really it was Phil's fault that I got into this shopping thing. I teased him about that. One day I was talking to my dear mother who lived in Missouri and I told her, yeah, I went shopping. I bought that. And she says, well, did you take it back the next day? And I sat there and I said, why did you say that, Mother? She's because that's what you do. You go buy it and then you take it back the next day. And she was right. I get home, I go, what did I buy this for? I don't need this. So anyway, Phil put up with a lot of stuff. You know that? He really put up with a lot of stuff with me, let me tell you. And then, wait to hear this one. I hated to be on stage. I did not like to get on stage. Probably for the first 10 years, we would be on the stage winning an award or something, and they would ask me to share my story. I'm very good one-on-one, but I don't like to be on the stage. So I would start to share my story. And I have to tell you this, halfway through, it was like the Holy Spirit would speak to my heart because I knew that God answered our prayer with Relive. It wasn't me just out there earning this income, that God was really involved in our business. So for me to get up there and say, oh yeah, I did this or I did that. No, you know what? It was from the Lord. Because I believe in the power of prayer. And we prayed for our master affiliates. And so I would get choked up and I'd have, I couldn't finish my story. So one time, Sandy Montgomery, I'll never forget her saying to me for the first time when I got up on the stage, she said, Betty, you didn't cry this time. I said, that's amazing. After 10 years, you finally overcame my crying. So, and then the first time I had to do a master affiliate workshop, oh, poor Phil, you would not believe what I put him through. I am not going to do that. I am not going to do that workshop. And he would drag me anyway. And then once I got there, the Lord just would help me through it. So what else do you need to know, Kim? What else? You got any more questions, you guys?
How about your international adventures? Because you've really taken this around the world.
Yeah.
You have some stories there?
That was amazing experience. Well, sometimes I get teary-eyed.
It's okay. You take your time.
Well, it's it's a neat experience because you're standing there with all these people that you've never met before. And what a blessing to be able to meet people and encourage them. I mean, I've been so blessed meeting them and hearing their stories and listening to their backgrounds. And it was one story, Jason sponsored a couple that were from Oh, gee. Where are they from? Oh, no, I'll come to me, but they took us out to lunch and I was so overwhelmed by my experience with this couple because of where their background, where they came from. And it was such a privilege for me to meet them that I actually had to leave the table and go to the bathroom because it just was overwhelming for me. Because I had learned the history of their country and all that they'd gone through. And she was actually there during the coup. I'll tell you that story another time. Anyway, so what was it like? It was fun. You know, I loved every minute of it. We traveled. We went over for a few weeks to work in Germany. We'd were in so many homes, and Adrienne Bell, I got to meet her in Ireland. My maiden name is Killian, so it's a little Irish. And so that was really fun for us to be there. And Adrienne, I got to meet her for the first time there. I don't know if I met you at conference first. I might have met you at conference first, Adrienne, and then met you there. And working with Eric was such a joy. I mean, he's just wonderful to work with. I just did the same thing, guys, that we did at home. People have the same needs all over the world. Some people come into this business for the fellowship. Some people come in because they really have some really difficult health issues, and because of their health results that got on the product gave them the passion to share it with other people. And some people just jump in because they need a business and they believe in this product. And so that's why you learn to share the whole story, because you don't know what their needs are when you first meet them. But I was in several homes, and I met Jason's mom and dad. And oh, I got a good one to tell you. This was a hoot. I mean, sometimes I'd be in these meetings and I can remember stand up. The first thought would come to my mind is, boy, if my kids could see me now. Now, where do you hear this one? So Jason sponsors this gal that sponsored some Muslims, some women that are Muslims, you know, they wear the burqas and the stuff. Well, anyway, she also sponsored a couple that were a man and wife, and they were both Pentecostal preachers, and they had a church, and interesting churches over in England and London, because a lot of times they'll buy an office building and rent out different floors. Maybe they have one floor that's their church where they meet. So I met the pastor's wife. Oh, I'm just a wonderful couple. I just fell in love with this couple. And so we're going to do this Tuesday night meeting, this opportunity meeting. And Jason's distributor, she brought in these group of women. Kid, there must have been 12 to 15 women that she brought into this Pentecostal church. And they're sitting on the first two rows, and they have their little, what do they call those burqas? Those little, now we're all wearing masks, but anyway, and their gear on their head. And it was so hot in there. And I'm standing up there thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe these women with these things on. And I mean, just imagine, I'm in a Pentecostal church, and there's a whole group of Muslims sitting on the first two rows, and I'm talking about Relip. Okay. And after the meeting, these women came up and they hugged me. One woman had a beautiful pin. She pinned it on me. She wanted me to have it. I mean, they were so precious. I was so blessed. I just was so blessed to get to meet them. And then Susan told me a story about a couple of them, and I thought I would crack up. I said something about, well, Betty, let me tell you. These two gals, as soon as their husbands leave for work, they rip those burqas off, they pull out their cigarettes, and they cuss like a sailor. I said, you're kidding me. I can't believe you told me that. So that's a funny story. You guys, I did work. I know you think that I just tell funny stories, but I did work very hard, and it was very serious.
So Betty, what I'm hearing from you is that you were intentional and serious about your business, but you laughed and you didn't take yourself seriously.
Right. That's good. That's very good.
Okay.
But you know, when I sat down with somebody that's new, I mean, I would talk to them about Relip and what they could do with it and how much money they could earn. You know, I ask a lot of questions when I meet people, you know, how many kids do you have? And, I like to get to know people. And, when you do that, you can kind of zero into to see what their needs might be. Maybe a mom wants to, start earning some money, put these kids through college. It's so expensive. Or maybe they want to put them in a private school. I mean, you find that out by asking a lot of questions. And I learned to do that. So, but I do, yeah, I was very intentional. Every day I had a list. I did it the night before my list. Who I was going to follow up with, maybe I had some cool, and listen, I would use directories too. You get a neighborhood directory, use it. Call them up. Hey, I'm living in the neighborhood. I noticed that you live a couple blocks away. Have you ever heard about Relive? I'm just opening up. A lot of times I would use things like, I'm opening up this area. Like when I'd be in South Florida, I'd say, I'm opening up the area with a new product line. It might be something that you might be interested in. I'm looking for some people. So yeah, I was very, very intentional. And I was very strong with my closing. A lot of times when you're nervous, maybe with a friend or you're new, but I would come right out and ask them, well, what do you want to do? You want to get on the product? Want to come into business? I would just ask them, what would you like to do? Well, Betty, I'm not really interested in the business right now. I said, well, that's fine. You might down the road someday. That's great. But just find out what they want to do. You don't want to leave it just hanging. They're not going to say, jump in and say, oh yeah, I'm going to get on this product most of the time. So, and I would tell them, hey, there's a 30-day money back guarantee. If this is something that you don't like, you can get your money back. You don't have to worry about that. So I would say things like that. But I'd be very positive about the fact they're going to see changes when they start taking the product. And then I also, Emily, the other thing is that I led into the fact that they were going to hear some stories without telling them that they're going to hear stories. Okay. Because most people do not want to get on the telephone to hear stories. Have you found that to be true in some situations? So I would just say, you know what, you're going to get an opportunity to meet some great people that have some great results on these products. That's all I would say. You're going to get an opportunity to meet some people that's got some great results on these products. Just lead them into that so that they know. And then when I call them up, hey, remember when I mentioned to you that you're going to get a chance to meet? I've got a friend on the line right now. I can't wait for you to meet her. Wait till you hear what's happened to her. And then I get around and introduce them. Then I keep my mouth shut and let them do the talking.
And when you talk about being strong, when people would say no to you, then did you walk away with your tail between your legs, or did you walk out leaving it strong? How did you do that?
Well, I wasn't that strong in the beginning. Come on, especially when it's your friends and they say no and you kind of get crushed, like, oh, wow, because they're, especially if you're a best friend, they don't want to get on the product. That's hard. So I can't say that I was nervous in the beginning. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. So you kind of learn as you go along. You don't have a script to learn, you know what I'm saying? So you just tell your story. Just say, you know what, I got to tell you, I found a product that's great and people are getting good results on it. And I decided to market. I decided to build a business. It might be something you might be interested in or whatever, but I wasn't that strong, the first 6 months or so. I got stronger, when I started making money. I'll tell you what, when you find a husband or a wife or somebody that's a little bit throwing cold water on them, you know what I tell them is, you just go put some money in your pocket. And I'm going to tell you that changes their attitude right away. And I think
I remember you thinking to yourself something like, well, they're not paying my bills. And it kept you going. What was that?
That was another call I made. I'm up in my office and I know the Lord put this other woman on my mind. And I am not going to call her. And I sat there and all of a sudden, this is what came to me. And I don't hear God speak audibly, you know what I'm saying? But when he says something to you. But I hear this, it says, what are you so worried about? They're not paying. Oh, I know what. No. Excuse me. That was a different one. This is the one this is the one, it was some of the church gals that I went to church with. And I was going to call a couple of them. That's when the Lord spoke to my heart. And he said, you know, what are you worried about? They're not paying your bills. Because I was concerned because I think some of my friends got upset that I wasn't at the church all the time. I was very, 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 very involved. That's where my heart is in ministry. And for me to go to work, I had to go to work. Phil needed me as a team. And that's what I battled. And I remember the Lord speaking to my heart, Betty, they're not paying your bills. And, you know, and he was right. They weren't paying my bills. I needed to go to work. So see, that was my struggle that first 6 months when Phil wanted me to, you know, for us to do this, is because I had my life over here. This is what Betty wanted to do. Okay. And the Lord had to show me that this was something that we were going to do together. So yeah, they weren't paying my bills. That's right. So.
Eddie, thank you so much. I'm going to have to jump off, but it is always a joy to hear from you.
Oh, sweetheart, it's good to see you. I gotta go to what time is it, guys?
And just about 3.
Okay.
Wow.
Almost noon.
Well,
It's great.
time
Adrian,
flies.
it was great to see Adrian. I don't know if she's still on. It's great to see you on.
Ah.
Adrian Bell. It could be kind of
Hi.
late for her.
No, it's only 8 o'clock. Not too bad.
Okay, it's good to see you.
I first met you when I went to the States. It was a Wednesday night. You hosted a meal. Joe and Carl were there. Wendy Stokes, Wendy Berg.
Oh,
She was
yeah.
there, and her son. And I had my daughter with me. She
Oh,
was 16, so she came with me on that trip. So that was the very first time I met you, the first
Okay.
conference. I didn't want to come home. For 3 days, and I didn't want to come home. I just felt so at home amongst everybody. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's great, Adrian. It's nice to see you.
lovely to see you too.
Yeah. Nice to see you, honey.
Well, Betty,
Thank
so
Amazing.
much.
you for sharing, Betty. That was so wonderful.
Yeah, and I love what you shared, Betty, about the retail therapy.
Love it.
Use that for sure.
Yeah.
And one day, Betty, we'll do a call, just the two of us telling all the funny things that have happened.
Hey, I'm
Please, yeah,
game.
let's schedule that.
Heck yeah,
We have to schedule that. Yeah.
absolutely.
We
What are
love you
doing next
guys.
Thursday?
Nice to see you. Thanks for being on,
Thank you so
honey.
much
Thanks
for
for
coming out.
Guys, thank you.
Thank you, Rita.
Betty. It's
Hi,
so good
Betty.
to see you.
Good to see you, honey.
Mhm.
Oh, you got a neat kitchen. What's up on your
Oh,
ceiling?
thank you. Oh, it's just trim.
Oh, okay.
Really? It's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in so long, and it's just a joy to get to see you.
Well, it's
Yeah.
good to see you too. I miss everybody, don't you?
Yeah, well, we do. We do. So,
Thanks,
so you
Betty.
have a
Yeah.
great week. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yes. We
Bye.
Hi,
Yeah.
you're all dressed up today. You're all dressed up today. Are you going out to lunch?
Who's dressed up?